All right, we're back.
Hello, how's it going? Nice to see you again.
Yeah. All right, so what are we here to talk about this time, bro?
The original Scream movie, at least I hope it's the original and there wasn't like one from like the 50s that I wasn't recalling.
No. Yeah, it's Scream, good old Scream 1997. And we have to refer to it as Scream 1997 now because of Scream 2022.
Oh no, they didn't do that, did they?
They did do that.
Oh.
Scream 5, they just called Scream again because they're trying to be meta.
But like...
Yeah, I know.
That just confuses people.
I know.
That's why people think it's a reboot.
I know.
Plus there was a Netflix series, so...
I know.
Wasn't that just called Scream?
Yes, it was.
Your PR guy is very, very intelligent.
It's just idiots in the boardroom and monkeys on typewriters.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cookie to clack.
But that being said, so what'd you think of it? The original, that is.
I liked it. I mean, there's definitely some moments where like the killer was trying to kill them, but that he would just like trip and fall randomly, but do a complete like 360 flip in the process, which was just very comedic.
Yeah, it was a bit satirical for sure. But that being said, yeah, they were incompetent killers.
Yeah,
yeah.
They were like two actual, like it was like real life, two people doing this, dressed
and that's why I couldn't buy the fact that both of the killers made it to the end of the movie, because in reality,
one of them would have messed up.
Oh, like the one killer in the garage with Tatum when she's taking him on. In reality, he'd be dead, because in reality, she would have been stupid enough to run to the door after she was smart enough to fight him. I guarantee she would eventually broke one of those bottles and fucking starts stabbing him. Well, let's hope we don't get demonetized with that F word.
Probably not.
But anywho.
Yes, I mean, she was already throwing bottles at him, which he couldn't dodge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bottle. You just turn sideways, it moves past you.
I know.
But it was hitting him, and they were breaking on him, which it really should have just hit him and then broke on the floor, but she was throwing it with enough force that she was A, hurting him, and B, shattering the bottle on him.
I know. Oh, yeah.
I don't think he was gonna...
That should have injured him, too, because he would have had some glass shard cuts.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, she was smart enough to do that, so she would have been smart enough to stab him with a broken bottle.
And that was the scene, like, where I was talking about, where he went to go stab her, and then he completely flips over on the stairs because she, like, ducks down and gives him, like, a shoulder flip.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm like... You're like the cheerleader, and you can do that.
I know, and that's why I didn't buy her dying and the killer making it of the scene. I'm like, you can't have her be this smart and all of a sudden be this dumb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, no, that killer is going to be stabbed in his belly with a broken beer bottle.
Yes. Or anything else in a garage.
I know. It's like, I just didn't buy it. And of course, the most unrealistic part of the scene was her death sequence when she goes into the garage door.
Yeah.
Because the reality is real garage doors can't lift that much weight.
No, they cannot.
Even a small girl like that would hold the garage door down.
Yes, and not to mention when the garage door is going up, if you put your hands on it, it will think something's in the way.
Yeah, the vibrations and it'll jam, yeah.
And it'll go back down.
That's if you trigger the sensor.
No, because you can literally grab it.
Yeah, a lot of them are like
it,
pressure sensitive. You're right.
To make it go, oh wait, there's something caught. I'm gonna go back
down. Yeah.
And yet it went fully up, shattered, continued trying to lift after it broke her neck, and she was still in there.
Yeah,
and then stopped working, and it was like
that's not how they work. I know. But they were hoping the audience are idiots and unfamiliar with reality.
I mean, well, this is 1997 garage doors, so maybe not.
No, not even. I can tell you, no, not even on 1997.
I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, man.
Yeah, because you remember my old house?
Oh, of course.
The garage door opener on that was a garage door opener from the early 1990s.
That's true.
So yeah, so even in
that's the one I'm referring to. I could put my hands on that and it would go back down.
Yeah. So yeah, even in 1997, that wouldn't work.
No, that's true. I was just hoping that was a newer garage, and I was wrong.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, guys. I tried to defend you, but
yeah,
logic defeats all.
Yep. I'm like, yeah. I would say overall, like, I did enjoy the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Even though some of the deaths were kind of stupid.
Yeah.
And the fact that the incompetent killers made it right to the end of the film.
Yeah.
I found somewhat unrealistic. And I also, like, when I initially saw this, like, this was one of the only two Scream films I saw in theaters. I saw this one, and I saw Scream 3 in theaters.
Okay.
I never saw the second one in theaters. I eventually saw it when it came to VHS. Yeah, that's right. Because I only saw the first and third in theaters. Second one I saw on VHS. And the fourth one, forget. I think I caught it like the fourth one on TV, like on HBO or something like that.
Right.
When I first saw it. So, yeah, it was... Or one of the movie channels, I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, so I didn't go to the theaters for 2 or 4. Mainly because why I didn't initially go see 2 in theaters. Because I thought this was kind of like a one and done thing. It was a nice original concept.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like you could... You needed a sequel, or a sequel would be any good.
Though they talked about it throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, I know. Basically, making fun of sequels, and sequels are garbage, and be like, oh, but I want to live for the sequel. Yeah, I know. So they were making fun of it themselves, but then they eventually did do a sequel. But that's what initially I was like, yeah, this isn't going to be any good. Because the first one borderlined on almost kind of being bad to a degree, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, the entire time watching it, all I'm thinking of is a Scream movie, or a scary movie, which...
A realistic version of a scary movie, I know. Which is...
Well, no, the actual scary movie which did the spoof scenes.
Yeah,
so
I know.
As I'm watching it, all I'm seeing is the spoof scenes, and I'm like, they weren't that far off.
I know. That's why I felt like a sequel wouldn't work. That's why I initially didn't go and see it.
Yeah.
And I heard from word of mouth that the sequel actually wasn't that bad. So I remember renting it one night from Blockbuster and thinking, okay, yeah, it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? It wasn't like the worst thing I saw. Or did I see it in... No, it came out like in I think the second one came in 98, so it would have been a VHS. I would have rented it. So saying, did I rent it on DVD? But no, it would have been VHS. So no, I rented it, watched it. Yeah, it wasn't bad. But I didn't regret not seeing it in theaters. But I will admit, it wasn't bad. Yeah. So that's what made me think when my friends wanted to go see Scream 3 in theaters.
It might actually be good.
It might actually be good. And then we showed up and it wasn't any good. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I should have trusted my gut.
Yep.
And I'm like... Screw you, Scream 2, for making me rethink my gut. And I'm like, oh, Scream 2 wasn't that bad. Maybe the third one won't be that bad. No. It's a typical crappy horror sequel.
And then the fourth one.
And that's why I didn't check the fourth one out. Because I'm like, this franchise is dead and buried. Like, really, what could they do with it? So that's why I didn't even pay money for it. I just watched it when it came on, like, HBO or one of the channels, whatever channel it was.
Apparently not much.
Yeah, and watched it.
With it.
No, I actually like Scream 4.
But you said it was I mean, I've seen it before, but I completely forget the whole movie. And you mentioned it was the cousin.
Yeah.
Magically, the cousin is just there.
Okay. So,
it's like,
yeah, I know.
What?
That was the only, like, that was the kind of the really dumb part of Scream 4.
Right.
Was all of a sudden... She has an aunt, her mom's sister, who she never mentioned before, who never appeared in any of the first 3 films, who would have
there was the brother, too, from the third one.
Okay, we'll get into that in a little bit. So, yeah, and all of a sudden her mom's sister just comes out of nowhere, and of course, she has a much younger cousin, even though I think actually it's her mom's older sister. But anywho, and even though her cousin's much younger than her, I'm like, I won't judge because mom's pushing 60, kids in high school. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, older people have kids. It happens.
That's true.
But yeah, they just pretty much came out of nowhere. But I did like 4. I actually really did like 4. I liked 4 a hell of a lot more than I liked 3. However, even though I liked 4, it still wasn't enough for me to go see Scream 5 in theaters.
Fair.
And I'm not going to. I'm going to wait until it comes out on the streaming services and watch it that way.
Same. I would say the same. I still haven't watched the Netflix series yet either.
I've watched that. The first 2 seasons. I haven't watched season 3.
Was it good?
First 2 seasons weren't bad. I actually liked the first season. It was decent.
Okay.
But the problem was they painted themselves into a corner in the first season.
Okay.
Which kind of left the season 2 was...
Trying not to do too many spoilers on that one.
Oh, shit.
I don't
Alright, okay, I was just saying
they did something that they couldn't get out of.
They were originally going to do something, and if they had gone that route, it would have made season 2 better. But then they changed something at the last minute and kind of painted themselves into a corner with the end of season 1, which forced them that there was only one direction they could go in season 2, and it was the most predictable and boring direction they could have gone.
Fair, okay.
And because of that, I really felt like season 2 kind of should have just been like cut in half. It shouldn't have been as many episodes as it was, because you knew what was going to happen. You knew where it was going.
Yeah.
You pretty much knew it from the get-go. And every time they tried to be like, oh no, you're like, yeah, we know. Just stop trying to misdirect us. We know. And I'm like, but no.
But it could be.
But it could be. Or, and you're like,
don't
no.
forget about.
Yeah, and you're like, no, just don't bother. And then in the end, it's kind of like when you're just looking at them straight in the face and you're like, yeah, we know. It's like, yeah, I know, we know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I felt with season 2. Like, I didn't outright hate it, but I was like, I was kind of, it was meh. I was bored with it.
You mentioned there was a third season, right?
They did do a third season. So the third season has nothing to do with the first 2 seasons or the cast in the first 2 seasons. Season 2 kind of ends on a slight cliffhanger, although it's not really a cliffhanger. If you, basically put the pieces together, you can figure out what the actual twist was from the supposed cliffhanger. That being said...
Fair. I'll keep that in mind.
That being said, season 3 has nothing to do with seasons 1 and 2 or the cast in seasons 1 and 2. And I haven't watched it yet. I plan on eventually getting there and watching it because it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
But from what everyone I know that's watched it, and from what I've read online, basically everyone has the same opinion. I haven't talked to one of my friends who have watched it or read any one article or from the websites to read stuff from that basically say season 3 was any good. Basically everyone I know or anything I've read online says season 3 is just awful. It is just bad from the get-go, and the killers are pathetic and unrealistic. And I'm like, that's basically the gist of what I know everything that happens in season 3 about being spoiled by my friends and what I've read online. So I actually know what happens in season 3 without watching it.
Yeah.
But I intend to watch it just so I can form my own opinion
on it,
and at least see it. But I have a strong feeling that I'm 99.9% sure that the feeling I have going into it isn't going to change based on my friends, what they told me, and their taste, and what I can trust from them, and the reviews I've read online. So I'm already prepared that it's going to be a disaster, and I have a feeling I'm going to come out saying, yeah, it was a disaster. Right. But yeah, I won't spoil anything for the show because you haven't seen it. But I will say I like how they handled the killer for the first 2 seasons.
Okay.
And how they try to make it different from the actual films.
Right.
Where it's like, yeah, this technically might possibly take place in the same universe, but it's completely its own thing and not directly connected to anything that happened there, other than a couple passing comments, I think, in like the pilot episode or something.
Okay.
So I actually respected them for that they weren't, pulling in characters from the films or, focusing on the legacy of the films.
Yeah.
They really did their own thing, which I feel is better than what a lot of the sequels did do. They tried to do their own thing, and I'll commend them for that, and they did a good job with it. But the choices they made towards the end of season 1 pretty much forced their hand for season 2 and what they could and could not do. And yeah, you'll understand what I'm talking about when you watch it.
Yeah.
That being said, going back to the Scream films,
My prediction for 5, it's either Billy had an illegitimate child at some point, and the killer is his illegitimate child that no one ever knew about, or somehow it's her child and he just hates her.
I don't know. Well, I can't confirm or deny anything you just said. We'll just have to eventually watch it and figure it out for ourselves, bro.
If I'm right, I'm going to be a little disappointed that I'm right.
I'm not going to confirm or deny anything you just said, bro. I'm going to watch it with you. We're going to figure it out on our own, bro.
You know who usually says that, right?
But
I'm not going to confirm or deny something.
people trying to
not tell you you're right?
Yeah. Well, I ain't going to tell you you're right.
Well, I'm glad you're not going to tell me that.
Anyway, getting back to the first Scream film. I remember, going to the theater and watching this. And enjoying it. But I will say this. The point where I knew who the killers were was in the video store scene. When Stu and Billy are with Jamie Kennedy's character,
they're harassing him and
what's his name? Jamie
saying he could be the killer, and
but basically Jamie Kennedy's calling them out or calling Billy out, and then he's having the conversation with Stu. It was in that scene I knew that Billy and Stu were both the killers.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you didn't really know that there was two killers.
Yep.
But at that point, I assumed like one of them was the killer and the other was their accomplice, kind of thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like one of them was 100% the killer and the other one was somehow helping them. And then when they made the reveal, the twist at the end was there's two of them. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because it just seemed too obvious. And this movie was a film trying to be overly clever.
Yeah. And
because I felt they were trying to, being overly clever, and they had this very obvious, look, these guys are the killers, these guys are 100% the killers. I thought because they were trying to be super cheeky and, I don't want to say over the top, but just almost a little full of themselves.
Yeah.
That they were pretty much putting it in your face for you not to think they were putting it in your face.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was like, oh god, these two are going to be the killers, aren't they?
They better not be.
This is so unoriginal. I remember watching that scene and thinking in my head, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope this is just a very strong red herring, and that they're going to lead us down another direction.
Like it's the
killer is going to turn out to be somebody else or whatever. But I'm like, at this point, it's super obvious that these two are the killers, or at least one of them's the killer and one of them's the accomplice.
Yeah.
If they're somehow in it together, that for me, I was like, I was feeling disappointed at that point, but I was hoping that I was wrong.
Yeah.
And that it was going to be a red herring, and they're going to do a reveal at the last minute, and say, no, it was actually this person, and haha for you thinking that.
Yeah.
And I would have actually appreciated being wrong.
Right.
But and when they did the reveal at the end, I was like, oh, no. I'm like, it's because they were the two most obvious choices in the entire film.
Absolutely.
And then they really nailed that scene home with the video store scene, and I'm like, come on, just try to be a little bit more original. Try to figure out who else it could have been. Like, there's so many other people that could have been. Like, you could have had Dewey could have been the killer. And, he's bumbly, he's an idiot. You don't take him seriously, even though you really should. And he could be getting revenge on all the teens because...
You mean what Scary Movie did?
I was his hand. Yeah, but I'm getting into that. And, he could take revenge on all the teens because maybe, they bullied him before... Yeah. Because they make out he's Channing's old... or not Channing. I was going to say Channing Tatum, but I mean... but Tatum, his sister. I forget the actress that played her. But, Rose McGowan. Right. He's her older brother, but clearly he went to that high school.
Yeah.
Maybe their older siblings or those kids made fun of him because he was a bit geeky or whatever, and this is him getting his revenge.
Yeah.
He plays the bumbling deputy, he's one of the good guys, you would never suspect him.
Yep.
He has the means and capability and access to the equipment to be able to get away with cloning cell phones and killing and stalking people and tracing phone calls, figuring out where people are.
Yep.
Tracking people. To me, Dewey wasn't the obvious choice, but he was the most realistic choice for me to be the killer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that reveal at the end, it's like, I've always hated my sister. I'm glad that, what is dead. It would have made sense too, right? Going after your sister and all her friends. And
I mean, his sister literally makes fun of him throughout the whole movie.
I know, right? And it would have been a good revenge plot, like him getting revenge on all those who wronged him. But I'm like, the pathetic boyfriend and the stupid best friend. I'm like, okay, it's gonna be them.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm hoping it's not. I'm like, it could be Dewey. It could also been Tatum. Like maybe she has an obsession with Nev Campbell's character Sydney.
Yeah.
You know, she wants to be her lover, and she can't admit her feelings because of societal pressures. And back in '97, coming out gay wasn't as easy as coming out gay as today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she knew like Sydney would reject her, and so she's basically trying to destroy her life to try to bring her closer to her. And then when she realized that wasn't going to happen, she just decides to finally take Sydney out. So there's other directions they could have went.
Yes.
Or they could have had, Dewey and his sister be the dual killers, you know what I mean?
They could have, yeah. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, and there's so many different angles they could have. And that's what I like about Scary Movie. Scary Movie saw that and we're like, no, you guys are stupid. It shouldn't have been these two. It should have been Dewey who was the killer.
Yeah.
And even in the spoof movie, they correct the real movie's mistake and actually have the Dewey knockoff be the killer.
Yeah. And then you find out, like, I love how you find out that it was all an act.
Yeah,
and
that's what I mean.
He's just totally fine, and it's like
being goofy and a dumbass was basically
his Bruce Wayne,
his shtick. He was faking it, and that's what could have been the reveal. All of a sudden, he's serious and he's competent when he reveals himself as the killer, and it's like, yeah, that's what I loved about Scary Movie because they're like, yeah, hey, Scream, yeah, we fixed the killer problem.
Yeah, we did it right.
This is who it should have been.
We did your goofy fight scenes as well, and your goofy murders, but we fixed the plot.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. It's just, that's the only lame part of the film for me. Who the killers turned out to be.
Right.
When how early on I knew who they were, and I was hoping that was just a blatant red herring to make you think that, because this is a film that tries to be overly clever, and that was so blatant. That it was like, okay, I hope you guys are just trying to be coy and not cocky. Because if it's coy and you try to do it as a red herring to trick us in the end, fine, I'll accept that. But it felt like they were being overconfident and cocky to say, hey, like 30 or 35 minutes or whatever it was into the movie, it's like, these are the killers. I hope you enjoy the next hour of the movie. And it's like, well, we tried to pretend these two aren't the killers.
Yeah.
Even though you know.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So all that being said, what's your favorite scene?
Oh, my favorite scene of the entire movie is the garage fight with Tatum and the killer.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the only part I hate is when they unrealistically, all of a sudden Tatum becomes stupid and dies. I'm like, no. When that killer is laying on the stairs on his back, she's cracking one of the bottles and is like, that ends that character right there. Yeah. I'm sorry, that character.
Even just a few stomps to the head, like he was completely flipped over.
Yeah, that guy.
His head was closest to you. You just had to go stomp. And
that guy is 100% dead at that point.
Yeah, no.
I know, and all of a sudden it's like, no, we don't want to do the reveal so soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it could have been your twist too. You could have revealed that person was the killer, and whoever ended up being, right? If you're going with the two killer angle.
Yeah.
And then he could have been, oh, this person was the killer. It's all over and done with, blah, blah, blah. And then you do the twist where it's like, actually,
there's two.
It's like, there's two of us. He was my partner, and I'm the other killer.
Yeah.
Then you could have done that.
Yeah.
And I felt that would have been better than the reveal they had.
Yeah.
Like, if they were going to go down the stupid Stu and Billy kind of thing, you have Tatum kill Stu. Oh, it might have been Stewie. Who knows? But Stu, and have it be Stu. Have her kill it. Be her boyfriend. Have her kill it. They think, oh, it's over. Party gets cleared up by the cops. Blah 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, a few days go by. Sydney thinks it's all over. She's alone with Billy. Then Billy pulls out he was in on it with Stu the whole time, and he is the other killer, and blah, blah, blah.
I would have liked that a bit better.
That would have been better than how they... Even with them doing those two as the killers, that would have been a better way to do it.
Yes, because I found the stabbing each other stupid.
Yeah, it was supposed to be kind of like a homosexual undertone kind of thing. Like they were into each other and penetrating each other, but couldn't admit their love for each other. There's so much.
That's fair,
But I know there's so much BS in that scene.
It was like, you're gonna willingly let each other stab.
I know it was dumb.
Killers,
the whole ending of that movie was dumb.
Yeah,
like there's so many better ways to write that ending, even if you wanted to do those two as the killers.
You know how I would have liked to see it?
What?
The main character actually dies. The killer wins and gets away with it.
Yeah. Or the bigger twist too could have been like your main character was the killer all along. And it was this person you're following the entire time you think was the victim, you think they're chasing after, but you do kind of a twist, kind of like, I'll give it to like Wild Things, where you find out one of the people you thought was a victim was actually a villain all along and was really the mastermind behind it.
Right.
And ironically enough, it's the same actress, Steph Campbell, in that role. But I'm like, to me, that would have been better than what they did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, there's so many different better endings to that film and better choices for the killer, and they ended up being.
And they chose, like, what they chose.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, it could have been, you know, the two that we saw the whole time were just copycats of...
Or there could have been somebody else, pulling the strings. Which they kind of tried to do with Scream 3, because Scream 3 tried to connect back to Scream 1, and her long-lost brother she never knew she had revealed that he was the one who gave Stu and Billy the idea to become killers, and he planted the idea of them being killers, and he was the secret mastermind all along.
Fair. But what I was thinking of, if it was her, and they were trying to kill her because they were just copycat killers because they were two, high school kids and thought it was cool, but realistically she was the actual killer, and they're trying to kill her the entire time.
Or another
and
thing.
She kills them, and it's like, oh, you saved the day, but it's like, I'm actually the killer. I did the original one that you saw. Everything that's happened since has been the copycats trying to get at me.
Or another way to do it is try to do it as a whodunit, and then when you finally reveal the character, like, the main cast doesn't know who it is. It's just some random person from town who may have had a non-speaking cameo earlier in the film.
Right?
Like, yeah, I know. Like, it could have been like, the hardware store guy that you see for like that 10 seconds closing his shop up and going home when like the curfew gets called.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it could be like some random guy who sees him every day.
I didn't see that coming.
You know what I mean? Like, and all of a sudden it's like, it's just a random killer who's been stalking him. And they don't know because they're all looking at each other. They're all looking at people from the school. Mm-hmm. That's who the police are focusing on. And it turns out to be like Tim, the guy who owns the tool store. You know what I mean? It's like, well, we didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? It's like, there's so many more original ideas they could have come up with a killer and the direction they could have went with in that film. And that's what kind of kills it for me. Mm-hmm. But I still enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, it's a horror film, and it's a slasher film, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does its job, technically.
It does, it does its
job. Gives you some jump scares every now and then. It kind of makes you think, who is it? And then you kind of figure out who it is and are disappointed. But, it's a good film.
Yeah.
Should you go see it? Yeah, absolutely. I'd say it's a classic by now.
Oh,
is
for
it
sure.
Long enough that it's been a classic?
It's 25 years now, I think, at this point, yeah. I think the 4K Blu-ray that you released is at 25th anniversary on it or something.
Okay, that's fair.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching, and bless you.
Excuse
and,
me. I got a dusty basement. Oh. All right, so I guess let's wrap this up. So your overall thoughts?
Good movie. Definitely could use a few plot upgrades, but worth at least seeing once if you haven't seen it. And if you have, go back and watch it. I'd probably say that for everyone, but it's definitely worth going back to after a few years.
Yeah, I would say definitely give it a visit, especially after you see the new one, to compare it to the original. And if you have nothing better to do, you could put all 5 on and have a marathon go.
I might do that at some point.
Yeah, but overall, I would say I definitely enjoyed the first film, for sure. I would definitely at this point consider it a classic. Although, as I said multiple times through this review, that there are some weak points in the film. It is what it is. But then again, there's weak points in lots of horror films. Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. So any closing thoughts there, bro?
Thanks for watching, and hope to see you guys in the next one.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, everyone, stay safe and stay healthy.
Adios.